Hello, good evening and welcome to my humble model railway, Bedstead Junction. Now tonight is a follow-on really from my previous video, which is about Caerphilly Castle, my newly acquired Caerphilly Castle. Now that's going to be getting a running session tonight, but it's going to be one of 4 locomotives you're going to be seeing tonight. So there's going to be a Great Western Railway extravaganza, and these are all express passenger locomotives. Now, we'll be starting by looking off at the Saints class, followed by the Star class, followed by the Castles, and followed by the Kings. So this really is a development of the modern steam 460 locomotives of the Great Western Railway. Now, I hope you enjoy watching this. Without any further ado, we shall get underway. Thank you very much. Right, now the 2 locomotives you can see on the track are designed by George Stachton Churchward, and the one in the background is a Saints class, St David, and the one in the foreground is a Star class, Lode Star. Now they look very similar to each other, and these were really the beginning of the development of the 460 locomotives, from which the Castles and Kings were evolved, and also from where mixed traffic locomotives like the Hall class were evolved. Now, without any further ado, we're going to have a look at St David, and we'll just see how this one runs. This is a model by Hornby. In fact, all the models tonight are all by Hornby. Okay, so just watch this one come out up here. Now this particular model hasn't been run for some considerable time, so it could do with a really good run, which is what it's going to get tonight. And in fact, you're going to see 4 locomotives hopefully tonight. I might do this in 2 parts, but we'll see. Right, so this is the magnificent King David. Let's get underway. A very nice running locomotive. We'll just watch this one flying through the country station in just a moment. Like I say, it's not been run for some considerable time, so it does need to loosen up just a little bit. But it's speeding away now. Right, now the Saints class. Well, this is a model by Hornby, let me say. We'll just have a look and see what we have here. And this R830 GWR 460 loco, St David. Okay, that's exactly what it says on the box. And this model would have been made by Hornby in the 1980s. So this really is an much earlier development of the Hornby locomotive. This one is different to the other 3 in that it's powered by a ring-filled motor. So it's tender powered. Oh, there we are. R830 2011 1986. You can see this model was actually produced in 1986. So it's the oldest of my models here, but as you'll probably agree, a nice little runner. Now the Saints class was the first of the 460s produced for the Great Western Railway, designed by George Stachton Churchward. And the total built was 77, and they were built between the years 1902 and 1913. Some of these are built actually as 442 locomotives. I think 13 of them were built as 442s, and they were converted in 1912 to 1913 into 460s. Now, none of these were actually preserved, but one was rebuilt into a hall. And in fact, it was from this Saints class locomotive that the Hall class actually evolved. And basically what the Hall class is a Saint but with smaller wheels. What they found was that the size of the wheels on these locomotives would have made them unsuitable for mixed traffic use. So a smaller wheeled version was made. So this is a 2-cylinder locomotive, as opposed to the Star class and the Castle of the Kings, which were all 4 cylinders. This one was considered by for preservation, though it decided because of the actual state of the locomotive it was too far gone and they decided to let it go. Saints class Clevedon Court was almost preserved by the owner of Clevedon Court, the mansion itself, but that plan didn't come to fruition either, and sadly Clevedon Court was scrapped too. You can still actually see the number plates of the Saints class Clevedon Court actually at Clevedon Court itself, which is now a National Trust property. So you can imagine what a difference these locomotives would have made to the Great Western Railway. Previous to this, you would have had the Dean singles. A lot of the locomotives designed in the interim period between Dean and Churchward. Dean was the chief mechanical engineer from 1877 to 1902, and also, of course, Dean was famous for the Dean goods. Probably the longest serving of his actual designs. And this one, George Jackson Churchward, which they was a successor to Dean. Very, very nice. And I bought this locomotive second hand during the lockdown. When I first bought it, it was a little bit stiff and arthritic. In fact, a lot of these locomotives, if they've been kept in the box for too long, can become a little bit stiff. This one probably needs another service, probably needs another oiling, but it seems to be running quite well. I've not added a loco crew to this one. Now you can see that the family resemblance between all of these locomotives. They all have the familiar copper cap chimney, brass safety valves and whistles. Now, one thing that you will notice if you buy one of these St David's from Hornby, obviously second hand, is that the coal load is quite rather high, and that's because the refund motor is actually accommodated inside the tender. It's in Great Western livery. I say the last of these, I say, were finally withdrawn in 1953. So they had a very, very long service life on the Great Western Railway and proved to be very, very useful. Now, as they say, information is power. And a book I can recommend if you can get hold of this, one of these, is Portraits of Western 460s, the Saints, the Stars, the Castles, the Kings, Halls, Granges, Manors and Counties. Photographs from the Kenneth Leach collection. A mine of information about what these locomotives were like in service. It does contain an awful lot of information about the footplate experiences. These were very, very popular with their crews, very free steaming, and quite popular with their crews right to the very, very, very end of their very long service. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put St David into the station right in just a moment, and then we're going to have a look at what the we'll see the two locomotives briefly together before we actually run the Star class. So we'll just watch this one and see what it's like negotiating points. And in fact, the more I run this locomotive, the better it's getting. Like I say, I think these do benefit from a good run. Let's just take a look at it now, putting it into the station. That's me on the controller when it pulled in quite fast there. Very, very nice. You can see the family resemblance. And in fact, the quickest way to spot a church ward locomotive, as a rule, would be that rather than they've got smaller cabs, and so they've got the cutout to the back of the cab here instead of a window. You'll see when we show the Collets locomotives that the Collets have a bigger cab with a side window. Now we're just going to have a quick change of points. And we're going to have a look at Lode Star on the track. There we go. Nice and easy. As we just get the camera just pointed onto it. There we go. Reverse. So my hand got in the way then on the controller. Controller is quite close to the railway running lines. So just watch this one pulling out up towards the points here. Over the points very, very easily there. And then we'll just get ready for a quick run down the main line. Okay, so what we're looking at now is the next stage of development of the 460 express passenger locomotive, the magnificent Star class. This is Lode Star. We're moving into a little bit later model wise now. Now I would not recommend anybody would buy something unless I was absolutely happy with it myself. Okay, I've never had a model sent from anyone from a review or anything like that. So I could say on this particular my experience with buying Lode Star, I could actually recommend these. Now there is something to which I think helped Lode Star with the packaging. I know packaging isn't the most exciting of subjects with locomotives, but it's something that you need to watch out for, and it's also something which you have to need to watch out for with a lot of these new Hornby locomotives. Just get this out of the box and you can see it. Those don't sound like the most exciting thing in the world to see, but here we go. This little block, okay, of foam here. Let's focus on that. That is pushed between the tender and the locomotive. okay, and you'll need to remove that piece of foam before you attempt to run the locomotive on the track. I was caught out by that in the beginning, wondering why it was derailing, okay. You need to remove that piece of rubber. It's also, that was placed between the, between the tender and the locomotive of Caerphilly Castle. Now I think that it enabled the locomotive to be transported without it moving around too much in the box. And I think it certainly helped keep the locomotive in good condition. It came to me in perfect condition, no parts missing or anything like that. Ran perfectly well out of the box as well. Now with the original Hornby Wingfoot motor, you didn't get much information about the actual locomotives themselves, but with our Star class, I can see what we have here. Railway Museum Hornby R3864 GWR Star Class 460 Lode Star number 4003. That's what's on the track now in case you're interested. And I think, if I remember rightly, I got this one off of Amazon. So it's part of the National Collection. And that's what the modern box looks like. Like you get a lovely picture on the front. Top view. The diagram. And a description on the back. There were 73 of these locomotives built between 1906 and 1923. Now that would be, 1923 would be the year that Charles Benjamin Collett became the chief mechanical engineer. And of course that's when you saw the appearance of the castles and the kings. And in fact it was decided out of the success of the Saints class, which you saw originally the 2-cylinder locomotive, that it would be desirable to have a 4-cylinder locomotive with greater power for the express passenger services. Now this is something which is a factor for all railways, in that they wanted greater speed, and also train loads were getting heavier and heavier, and so you needed more power. And that's one of the reasons why the Great Western Railway went from the Dean singles, and then from 4 to 440s in a lot of cases, up to the 460s. Churchward did design one unique locomotive called the Great Bear, and that was a Pacific 260. And considering the number of one-offs that have been produced by Hornby lately, I wouldn't mind seeing a Great Bear being offered. The Great Bear. I say this last. I think the last of these Star classes were withdrawn in 1956, 57. So again, we had a massively long service life on the Great Western Railway. I say this one, Lode Star, Lode Star, but L-O-D-E, Lode Star, was actually preserved and is part of the National Collection now. Super model, like I keep saying. You get all the usual things like a decorated cab. No firebox glow on these, but you do get a decorated cab. A very nice decoration on the locomotive too. And of course this one, as opposed to St David, my model of St David being tender powered, this one has the motor fitted inside the locomotive itself. Okay, so just get ready to watch this one fly through the station. I can imagine the impact of one of these locomotives flying down the seawall, going to one of our lovely seaside resorts. And the place you can see locomotives whizzing along the seawall is Dawlish, a place I've often visited. Super. Okay, so that's the Superstar class. Now we're going to have to be doing some changes of locomotives quite shortly. And so I'm going to stop the camera and we'll have a change of locomotive. I'm going to box these two locomotives back up again and then I'll be moving on to the castles and the kings. Right, now we move on to the work of another of the Great Western Chief Mechanical Engineers, and this is the successor to Churchward, Charles Benjamin Collett. Now what we're looking at on the track now is in the foreground is Caerphilly Castle, a castle class. And in the background, the daddy of them all, the King class, King Edward VIII. So really now we've reached the peak of express locomotive development for steam railways or steam engines of the Great Western Railway. And in fact, King Edward VIII does represent the final developments through a number of features. Things you might not spot straight away. Probably the most obvious when you look at it is you've got a single chimney on the castle and a double chimney on the King. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go into why those two differences are there in just a moment. We're going to get underway with Caerphilly Castle. Bear with just a moment, we're just going to get the tripod adjusted. There we go. Okay, so we should be seeing Caerphilly Castle. Now Caerphilly Castle I've not had for very long, so you would have seen me do a review of this one, or the initial box opening. So this is basically now its first running session with actual rolling stock. So a lot of the information you'll be able to glean of this particular model if you go back to my previous video which I shot very recently. So let's have a quick change of the points and we can be on the main line and underway. Right. The magnificent Caerphilly Castle. Again, on my buying experience, I got this from a company called Jadlam, Jadlam Toys and Models, a company in Glastonbury, and it arrived really well packaged and in perfect condition. I could not see any flaws. I mean, that is the truth. I mean, I can honestly say this, is that the Lode Star, which I bought from Hornby, that had no flaws, no running defects, no parts missing. Couldn't see anything wrong with that. Caerphilly Castle, it's the same. Again, a very positive buying experience. Okay, so we'll just have a look at it now, whizzing down past the signal box here. And this is a development of the Star class. So it's still a 4-cylinder locomotive. And like I said about the cabs, you can spot a collet cab usually, because it's going to have it's going to be a larger cab and it's going to have side windows, which this one clearly has. The Castle class, a 4073 class. Let's go through the numbers. The Saint class was the 2900 class. Star class was 4000 class. This is the 4073 class, the Castle class. 171 of these were built, so this actually proves their usefulness for the Great Western Railway. They were built between 1923 and 1950, and 8 of these are actually preserved. And for one particular thing, which I shall go into quite shortly, this would have been the final development of the GWR 460 class. I say probably one of the more numerous of the Great Western Railway locomotives. Certainly in the 460 class of locomotive. Let's have a look at what model we're looking at now. So, bear with just a moment and we'll just take a look. And first of all, that's what our box will have looked like for Caerphilly Castle. Beautiful. Got the this one is in lined GWR green with a monogram. And again it comes with the diagram on the back and the history. And obviously they give you a nice bird's eye view of it too. Very, very nice. Now when Caerphilly Castle was actually built, these were the most powerful, or said to be the most powerful locomotives on the rails of Britain, okay? And the first of the class actually featured at the British Empire exhibition in 1924, alongside Flying Scotsman. Over the course of the exhibition, the Great Western Railway claimed their Castle class to be more powerful than the LNER contingent, leading to exchange charge between the GWR and the image-conscious LNER. In April 1925, 4079 Pendennis Castle and 4474 Victor Wilde will be exchanged between the two companies. The Castle class, even though lighter than the LNER Pacific, still proved to be capable of doing all of the LNER duties. It proved to be more capable than their locomotives at the time. I think really though, the two locomotives were built for two different purposes in some ways. I mean, the locomotive, the Flying Scotsman class were really involved in the rivalry between the LNER and the Midland in the race to Scotland, whereas the GWR were involved with the Southern Railway in the race to Plymouth. Now, the Pacific locomotives from the LNER proved to be a little bit long for the winding track of the Great Western Railway. The 4073 Caerphilly Castle was the first of the class to be built and was a bespoke example and not a rebuild of a Star class. It was built in the August of 1923 and went into BR service, finally being restored in May 1960. This locomotive has been preserved and is found on display at the Swindon Steam Museum, close to where it was built some 100 years ago. Really, really nice model, like I say. And well worth my hard-earned cash. I see a very, very smooth runner, beautiful. In fact, it was a good runner right out of the box. Once run in, yeah, perfectly good at crawl, either forwards or backwards. Perfect. Very, very happy. Again, you don't get a firebox glow in this locomotive, but you get a fully detailed cab and lots of separately fitted detail too. Can highly recommend one of these. And we're going to run the Caerphilly Castle into the station in a moment, and then we're going to be seeing really the daddy of them all, the King class. And why was the King class built? Okay, let's go into that in just a moment. Just bear with you a moment and we'll be ready to pull into the station with the marvellous Caerphilly Castle. Okay, so into the station we go. Over the points. And in fact all of these locomotives are quite capable of handling points. Right, so there's our castle. And then in the background, King Edward VIII. The biggest, the heaviest, and the most powerful of the Great Western 460s. Again, another model by Hornby. In fact, we're having a complete Hornby session tonight. Right, so we just reverse out of the station. Again, a beautiful runner this from Hornby. And we'll just have a change of points. It's a lovely locomotive from Hornby once again. Now I bought this second hand and it came from a company called the Modern Railway Emporium. Again, very, very happy with it. Very, very lovely detail on the model, and again, a very nice runner out of the box. Now, if you can imagine, you've got the Great Western Railway, and of course, all of the big four of the railways from 1923 on were very, very image conscious, publicity conscious. And of course, there, the Great Western Railway are saying they've got the most powerful locomotive, at least in form of attractive effort, in the castle class. When along comes the Lord Nelson class of the Southern Railway. Again with a higher tractive effort, the Castle class found themselves trumped. Now the actual general manager of the Great Western Railway, Sir Felix Pole, was not satisfied with that particular situation, and he ordered an extra locomotive to be built, a more powerful locomotive to be built, which culminated in the King class. Now, because of the weight of these locomotives, they were limited to only the very, very strongest built section of the Great Western Railway. You've got to imagine, it's not just the actual lines itself. You've got things like bridges and viaducts where they support the weight of the locomotive. And certainly, just before the actual building of the King class, certain parts of the Great Western Railway had been upgraded, which allowed the King class to be built. And with that, the Great Western Railway regained its crown. Now 30 of these locomotives were built. I say they were development of the Castle class. But the Castle class remained the more numerous of the Great Western Railway express passenger locomotives. Now the King must have given the locomotive crews a sense of absolute unlimited power. This one is in BR Leeds Crest, so it's the last development of the Great Western King class, and it's got a double chimney. I think they were equipped with extra superheaters. One reason was more power, of course, and also developments actually made, certainly with the Castles and the Kings, to be able to allow the locomotives to run on lower quality coal. Now the King class was actually classified as an HP, whereas the Castle class was a 7P. And in fact, also one of the reasons for the King classes to be built was that certainly the heaviest of their expresses would have required a more powerful locomotive. And in fact, it does say this on the detail. You've got the usual again Hornby packaging here with a lovely picture of the King class there. You can see the Lode Crest, bird's eye view, and also the customary diagram. Sometimes you get a photograph on the back of these boxes for certain classes, and also then you've got the information there. Now they were only able to operate over the Great Western's double red route. The Kings were confined to the West of England main line as far as Plymouth via Newbury and Bristol, as well as the cut-off route from Paddington to Wolverhampton via Bicester. It was over these routes that the King class became associated with the iconic Cornish Riviera Express, regularly reaching speeds of 100 miles an hour. Now the Kings were all withdrawn in 1952. Sorry, 1962, sorry. They were withdrawn in 1962. And the reason for that was really the arrival of the diesels. It was decided in the mid-1950s that steam will be replaced by diesel traction. Also, it could be said that by 1962 the King classes and actually served the Great Western Railway very, very well, and as a matter of fact some of them were in quite poor condition. In fact, that was the reason for withdrawal of a lot of the Great Western Railway 460s. There were a number of these locomotives preserved. Now, King Edward VIII is an interesting monarch. Only a very, very short reign on the throne. Edward VIII was forced to abdicate the crown because he wanted to marry a divorcee, Wallis Simpson. Okay, so with our current situation, I think times have changed somewhat, don't you? But at the time, he had to give it a third. Now, if, in a way, some people might say that was a good, was it a good thing or a bad thing? Well, we had King George VI came to the throne after Edward VIII, and he obviously, with the Queen Mother, helped see Britain through the Second World War. And in fact, the actual, the tale of the King and Wallis Simpson is actually something which in many circles is still talked about today. So there we are, we've got our King class named after King Edward VIII from Hornby, whizzing around the track, absolutely fun. Now this was meant to be a running session tonight, including a quick running session for my castle class, Caerphilly Castle. I fully run Caerphilly Castle in actually since I bought this new, and I gave it a good half an hour at least, forwards and backwards. Now if you like what you see, please press that like button and subscribe. Please excuse me if I've made any errors in this particular video. In fact, please comment if I have, because it's always getting quite late by the time I get to make these videos. Once I've done things around the house and stuff. Please press that like button and subscribe. And ring that bell to make yourself aware of future videos made by me. And I should say, well, thank you very, very much for watching. We'll spend a little bit, just a few more moments looking at our magnificent King class. I should bid you farewell and good night.